right, so here's the components that you get in the Zoo Med Naturalistic Terrarium Waterfall Kit. You're going to get 1 bag of hydro balls. Depending on the size of the setup that you're doing, you're going to need multiple bags. Today we're working with a 18 by 18 by 24 naturalistic terrarium, and we're going to use 4 bags. You're going to get a little waterfall pump, and this is what's going to drive your water from the top of your log or top of your cork and basically bring it back down to the water reservoir. You're going to get a hose attachment. This hose is going to attach on here, and of course you can cut it to size, and basically the hose will basically bring the water back up top and bring it back down over a piece of wood. Obviously there's an instructional booklet too. It is very, very useful. And the last component will be a screen mesh. It comes in 2 different sizes for 2 different terrarium widths. So this one here happens to be 18 by 18. And basically this is going to keep all the eco earth or other substrates from falling through and potentially clogging the pump. Always a good idea to test your terrarium before you actually start building anything, especially if it's water-based, just to ensure that there's no leaks. So we're just going to add a little bit of water, and we're going to try to make sure that there's no leaks before we get started to avoid potential disaster. All right, so we're going to position our fountain pump in place, and basically what you want to do here, we're just going to run the cord underneath the actual cork flat. This is a Zoo Med Naturalistic cork flat. It is measured for this terrarium here, so it'll fit it perfectly. And it's made from natural cork, and it can be fully submerged. So because we know we're going to build our waterfall on the right, I'm going to put the pump here on the right. And we also have a little slot for the actual cords to go through. You can put up to 3 cords on one side and 3 cords on the other. So if you choose to put other things inside, you have those slots available there. So our pump is in place now. And before you start building any of these kind of waterfall setups, you kind of want to visualize what you want to do. What I mean by that is either find a nice piece of mopane wood, it can be Malaysian driftwood, it can be really any wood or cork, and try to kind of visualize what you want to do. So we know that with this setup, we're going to have water flowing from up here, so I know I can put my pump on the right side here. So now we're going to continue along, and we're going to pour our hydro balls that we have pre-washed, and like I mentioned, we're going to use 4 bags. We're going to pour in the bottom. And the hydro balls also act like an indicator as to where you keep your water level. So that way your substrates really never should be submerged in water fully. All right, so next step is we're going to be adding our screen layer. And for this portion, I like to lay it out and see which way it fits better. It is perfectly, 18 by 18, but what we're going to do here is we'll make sure it goes the full length of the setup. And it goes end to end, which here it does. And now we're going to mark where we're going to actually make a little cut in here so that this hose can come through this. But you want to make this as tight as possible. Again, just to ensure that as little debris gets through as possible, which can end up clogging your pump that's underneath. Just make a tiny little cut. Don't make this cut very big because you want to be able to force the hose through so it's a nice tight seal. Now, one thing to keep in mind too is always keep in mind you don't want to pull the hose out, because if you end up doing that, you'll have to start over again and you won't be very pleased with the result. So what we're going to do here is all right, I'm going to slide that down. Remember, the whole time I am keeping the hose in the bottom. I'm not trying to pull it out. All right, so now we've taken some Zoo Med sphagnum moss, and we're just going to add a little layer, especially around the area here where the tube penetrates through the screen. And we're also going to put some around the outside edges, and this is strictly in an attempt to make sure that we get as little eco-earth or other substrate to fall through and potentially clog the pump in the long run. All right, and now we are ready to start adding our eco-earth. And eco-earth is natural coconut fiber. You are able to compost it if you choose to. There is a natural substrate. I personally prefer to put a lot of water in. As you can see, it's really saturated. The reason I like to do this is you'll actually be able to almost mold it to a certain extent. It'll hold its shape a lot better. So when you're trying to pack it in behind the wood, I just prefer to work with it really wet. And in the end, you're just going to get some leftover water that you can then dispose of. So now we're just loading up the eco-earth. you always want to try to get a sense of where your water is going to be coming. So it's a good idea to pre-test it, and this can be accomplished by simply pouring a little bit of water where you'd like the water flow to come. So that way you get the full benefit of the waterfall. And now we're just going to fill in everything in behind here. It's a good idea to just use one hand to hold the wood in place, and with the other hand just fill it in. All right, so once everything is filled in on the main waterfall feature, you can start to kind of fill in or try to visualize what we're going to do on the other side. All right, so we're just going to position this naturalistic cork round in there, and they're going to most likely plant a bromeliad or something along those lines, or a live plant in there. So we're just going to, again, lay it in there. We're going to elevate it a little bit using our eco earth. All right, now we're ready to throw some live plants in here. So we're going to be taking the plants out of their pots. We're going to be planting them, and always make sure that you're using plants that are suitable for the type of reptile or amphibian that you're keeping in there. So we're going to do something a little bit non-traditional here. We're going to actually bury and hide this hose for the fogger, and it's basically going to feed the fog through here, through this cork round, and basically just have it slowly trickling through. And in order to keep it from fully just pouring out, we're going to add a little bit of terrarium moss in the cork. Put a little bit of moss inside the actual tube here. What we've got here is our ZoomEd Reptisun LED UVB light. It's a combination hood that has a T5 high output UVB fixture that is attached to a Reptisun LED fixture. So what it does, it not only gives you full spectrum lighting and also gives you a nighttime blue lunar effect, it also has a UVB portion built in. All right, we're also going to install a ZoomEd Reptifogger. We're going to sit it on top in this application. Of course, you can always sit it beside the tank or underneath the tank. In this case here, we're going to sit it up top, and also because we've installed the fogger hose inside of the tank. So this is fully flexible. It'll bend in any shape, and it'll keep that form. So you can apply it to anywhere in the cage you need. So once that twists on there, the only thing left to do is add water. This is a water bottle. You may also use a larger water bottle, like a 2-liter pop bottle, if you require more water. Once you screw this portion on here, this will act like a valve. Once you put it in there, you'll notice now the water will take some time. If it doesn't go in right away because the fogger is not perfectly level, give it a light squeeze and make sure those bubbles are going in there. What's happening right now, it is filling the inside of the fogger. There's a little floating valve inside the fogger that basically tells the fogger if there's enough water for it to run or not. That's basically a safety feature, so when the fogger runs out of water, it will turn itself off rather than burning out. And once the bubbles are done flowing on the bottom, it means that there's enough water in there, and we're going to wire it up, we're going to plug it in, and then we're going to run our waterfall. So stay tuned for the final part.